The Sheila Zielinski Show is sponsored by SteveQuayle.com, offering a wide variety of products, links, headlines, and information for the end times. Order Steve's new book, Little Creatures, by visiting SteveQuayle.com. Dare to discover, learn, prepare, and be amazed.
Broadcasting live to the world. Now, it's Sheila Zielinski.
This is a very sinister Luciferian eugenics plan. These spineless weasels preach what people want to hear. They replace repentance with dreams of the good life. Mindless minions. Dying daily, taking up your cross, suffering and sacrificing have been superseded with name it and claim it. And as dark as I know it looks out there, the good news is that God is advancing his kingdom. And it's very exciting to be a part of his great commission.
It's Sheila Zielinski.
The Sheila Zielinski Show, the only show to give you the truth behind the headlines, prophecy, and the deeper things of God. Now, here is your host, end-time watchwoman, Sheila Zielinski.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Sheila Zielinski Show. I am your host, Sheila Zielinski, for this Monday, February 23rd, 2015 edition. A shout-out to the listeners tuning in from across the globe. A warm welcome to the WWCR listeners and the other networks that we are simulcast on. And a special hello to Kyle Horn in Dallas, Texas, and Michael in Taiwan. Folks, remember that Steve Quayle is on the program tomorrow, so be sure to make him a note of that. Also, if you don't have the MixLR app, you can download the TuneIn radio app. TuneIn is one word. And search WWCR2, that's channel 2, WWCR with the number 2 on it, and you can listen every day at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. I know a lot of people want to listen on smart devices and iPads, so that is another option. Or again, download the MixLR app and search Weekend Vigilante, and please click on the Podomatic icon on my website and follow me on Podomatic. Also, if people didn't catch Dr. Don Colbert on Friday's show, the archive will be up later this evening. And I hope people go to my website, click Try Sheila's Fountain of Youth. Folks, you have to try the Max 90-Day Longevity Challenge. I cannot recommend this product enough. I don't put my name or reputation behind something unless it's the best. So this is the best, in my humble opinion. It is really in a league of its own. Well, without further ado, my guest today is a friend of the show, Deborah Tavares. Deborah is an incredible woman out there spreading the word, exposing the nefarious connections between mysterious global trends of man-made and corporate-controlled technologies, weaponized frequencies, the falsified science of the global warming movement, smart meters, and other major programs intended to reduce the population and have people acquiesce to this global government regime. Deborah's highly visible opposition to smart meters has been heard on national and international radio shows, digital media, other news coverage. A discussion with Ted Turner, Russia TV, RT featured her, as well as she's been featured on Alex Jones. Her website is stopthecrime.net. It's linked there at weekendvigilante.com. And it is a pleasure to welcome to the program, Deborah. Welcome.
Well, Sheila, thank you so much for having me on. What I would like to share with all of the listeners is of the highest priority for everyone to evaluate for yourselves, take a look at this information, and then after you have, please help get this out far and wide so that we will become aware that we do not have a water shortage. And why is this so important? Because we have primary water. And I have 2 YouTubes up and out that you can type in your YouTube channel. One is entitled Water Crisis Hoax, H-O-A-X, Water Crisis Hoax. The second YouTube, which is a companion to that, is entitled Primary Water Explained. Primary Water Explained. Now, we have a separate website from my main site where you can download flyers and certainly read this most important book entitled New Water for a Thirsty World. Again, New Water for a Thirsty World. Interesting that the foreword is by Aldous Huxley. This book was written in the early 60s and was immediately taken off of the shelves by the wealthy in Los Angeles, California, so that this information would not get out. There was an attempt to try to reconfigure the California aqueduct and not have it be the aqueduct that it is today. And that book will explain that because on our website, again, primarywater.org, primarywater.org, you can download this book. The website where the primary water experts have very detailed information is primarywaterinstitute.org. Again, primarywaterinstitute.org. So what is primary water? Well, it is why we do not have a water shortage. And sadly, the media campaign is intended to frighten all of us about scarce water resources. But in fact, the Earth is the water planet and continuously produces water from within. In other words, water is a renewable resource, and we have an abundance of water. Water is produced deep within the mantle of the Earth by hydrogen and oxygen, and when they come together, a vapor is formed, and then that turns into water. And literally, the force of this water from underneath the mantle as it exits to the surface causes increased earthquakes. And proof of primary water can be seen when you see springs that are just continuously bubbling up. And I know many people go to springs to fill their water jugs, etc., and even in the middle of a very lengthy drought, as we have had in California, which is, of course, an engineered drought due to their weather manipulation capabilities. But due to the primary water, springs continually flow. This is where geysers come from when you see the water sprout up out of the ground. This is where oases come from, the water from oases in the middle of deserts. In fact, in the early 1950s, Israel was able to access primary water, which is accessible anywhere because, again, we're the water planet, and actually all of our ground mass is literally floating on water. And so Israel has been irrigating from and with primary water. Another example of primary water is Muammar Gaddafi and Libya. While digging for oil in the desert, they found primary water. They were able to spend billions and billions of dollars of oil revenue and bring that water to the Libyan people for free. And it served 70% of Libya's water needs until the system was blown up by NATO when Libya was attacked and is still being mercilessly attacked today. But you can find that. It's called the Great Man-Made River Project. The Great Man-Made River Project. You can actually see this being constructed, see the size of the pipes that were going under the desert, and certainly learn that it was the eighth wonder of the world. The eighth wonder of the world was blown up. We have an extremely important YouTube that I would recommend you watch and share with everyone because we expose documents that have been found out of Oxford, England, and out of Israel on the intention to privatize the water in the United States under the illusion, again, that we have scarce water resources. And I'll discuss that a little bit more in a moment, but I want to share with you this YouTube that I'm highly recommending. It's called Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. Water Wars, stealing water for profit and power. I go through the documents that are literally the foundational documents that will explain how and why this tragedy that has beset all of us in the United States has occurred in the first place. All of the unthinkable, horrific non-realities that we have presenting ourselves now. Many people call things Agenda 21, but what is happening here in the United States is coming from the executive office via executive orders. And that is why we have the Federal Registry, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I want to just say a few more words about primary water, because what we're seeing here in California is large swaths of farmland and ranch land is now being set aside with the illusion that there's not enough water. They're being told that they're over-pumping in the Central Valley, the San Joaquin Valley, the breadbasket of California, Central California, they say is in subsidence, meaning that area is sinking because of over-pumping. Well, the facts is that if there was not so much pumping, eventually the primary water could recharge those basins. However, primary water could be accessed and be allowed to more rapidly recharge these groundwater basins that are severely overpumped. Understand, there are two water cycles, and that is why the YouTube Primary Water Explained is so important for everyone to watch, because we explain the primary and secondary water cycles. And the primary water is created deep within the mantle of the earth from synthesis of hydrogen and oxygen, as I explained a moment ago, and under tremendous pressure from the earth's internal forces, it forms vapor, and it's pushed upwards, and it literally comes to the surface through fissures and cracks in the earth, the weakest areas of the earth's crust, and then it becomes liquid as it cools. And again, primary water is forced upward, while atmospheric water is subject to the effects of gravity and flows downward. And wells to access primary water don't necessarily have to be deep. The first thing most people ask is, well, how deep do you have to go to access primary water? And you will see that you can find it from almost ground zero to as much as 800 feet. So it is very accessible. And for those farmers and ranchers that already have wells, their wells have only gotten into the atmospheric or the secondary water cycle and not deep enough or not in the right location to access the primary water. The primary water is pure and clean water. It is also sometimes referred to as new water, as that book I referred to, New Water for a Thirsty World, or juvenile water, meaning, again, it has never been exposed to the atmosphere. So it does not have tritium in it. When you verify primary water, you will find that it does not have any atmospheric radiation in it. And this is why in the late 1800s and early 1900s, there was a rash of very, very brilliant children out of Hungary. And they later became very well-known scientists and highly intelligent, many more IQ than what we would typically experience, because sadly, we have all been drinking heavily and intentionally polluted atmospheric water. And that is why it is so important to understand that primary water is in abundance, and we must start looking down for water instead of up. We have to retrain the lack of the scientific facts and understand water comes from below, the real pure, clean water. And sadly, what we're seeing here in California and across the country and, in fact, globally, is that many farms and ranches, the owners of those properties, are allowing their misunderstanding and lack of knowledge and or ignorance to shatter their livelihoods and literally in many instances, they're walking away from their properties because they cannot produce the requirements to pay their mortgages. So again, just as with petroleum, we have been told that it's fossil fuel and that it is finite. We have a limited amount of petroleum. In all the school books, I was even taught that in school when we were taken in Los Angeles to the Los Angeles La Brea tar pits, and we would see the bubbling up there. We were told, oh, this is where our oil comes from. Well, as it turns out, another scientific hoax to create high prices, to create an oil market, a petroleum market. Petroleum is also a renewable energy, and I would recommend everyone take a look at the YouTube Origins of Oil for the true petroleum and oil facts. Again, Origins of Oil. That will put you on the right track of, again, learning what we have been denied. Now, I also have a YouTube up and out that I would highly recommend everybody watch as well. Who's Running America and the CAP? Who is Running America and the CAP? CAP stands for Climate Action Plans. The reason I would highly recommend this is because these plans are in effect throughout the country right now in your city. And what you can do to verify that these plans are in your city, after I explain what they are, is to type in your search engine the name of your city, followed by policies to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Now, first of all, we have to have a clear understanding. This is scientific consensus, false science. What we're hearing across the board now is the use of the word consensus. Everyone needs to understand that this is a non-reality-based policy procedure that has been put forth through the Tavistock Institute out of the United Kingdom and the RAND Corporation, R-A-N-D Corporation in Santa Monica, California. It is a meeting style of brainwashing and controlling the meeting, whereby your cities or your school boards or your local health departments, by the way, all of which are incorporated and do not serve you, generally will pay by a grant money that is adding to our national debt to bring in professional consultants to facilitate the meetings and to formulate a policy that is supposed to result from these lengthy meetings. These policies are manipulated. They already have been decided, and it's to create the illusion of public participation when, in fact, there isn't. This is why one of the many reasons we're down this road of serfdom as far as we are, through the misunderstanding of representation and the ability for manipulation through the Delphi technique, through these fake, phony meetings that are created to give the illusion we are participating when all of us know by now we're not. Most people are questioning politics and policies. Things just don't seem right. Well, they're not. And it's important to understand what happened back in on March the 9th of 1933. It's, of course, an established fact that the United States federal government was dissolved. This is back on March 9th of 1933, and none of us were taught this in school, what the Emergency Banking Act did. And this was under President Roosevelt. And what occurred was, as a result of the Emergency Bankruptcy and Banking Act, the receivers of the United States bankruptcy were the international bankers, the World Bank, Rothschild, and the International Monetary Fund. And since then, all United States offices, officials, departments have been operating within a de facto status only, in name only, which is again why we're finding all of these unbelievable executive orders that are redefining our reality. We're never voting for these, yet these are becoming policies. These are corporate statutes. We are not obliged to follow these corporate statutes, and we should not. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But I certainly want to underscore the need for everyone to understand the water facts and learn the water reality. And again, watch the YouTubes, because the climate action plans are set in place and they're setting in motion now. And what the climate action plans are requiring is for all of us to reduce our CO2 emissions in our homes. And the first of 3 phases to force reductions of CO2 emissions in your homes is beginning with saying that they will give you a free in-home energy audit. Now, you can type in the name of your city and energy audit firms. You will find that there are energy audit firms already set up in your town. They will be offering a free in-home energy assessment. Do not request one of those and decline a free assessment if you are offered that, because the interior of your home will end up and is going to be put on the Department of Energy's website, and they will know exactly who has complied to the required retrofitting of your home. Now, what does retrofitting mean? It means replacement of any and everything that is not reducing your CO2 emissions. For example, if you do not have Energy Star rated appliances, those are the appliances with RFID chips in them that send signals of usage to your smart meter. That is a collection device on the exterior of your home. On top of the wireless transmissions of radiation and pulsed frequencies through your home that causes cancer and damages your cells, your DNA, and causes illness of many kinds, you're required to also replace, if necessary, and most likely, the insulation in your home, your attic space, your crawl spaces, and increase the weather stripping on your doors and around windows, and likely to replace windows as well as replace heat and air equipment, even the fans in your bathrooms and the thermostats for your heat and air functionality, because all of that is now wireless and can be controlled remotely and not by you necessarily. That is round 1. Also, they are here in Sonoma County where I am, they're requiring solar panels on remodeling, if you're remodeling anything over 10%, and in new construction. And they're also requiring cool, C-O-O-L, roofs. So that's round 1 of the soon-to-be forced retrofitting requirements, because code enforcement is going to be tasked with verifying that you've complied with these new energy standards that are becoming policy within every single city through your planning departments and your building departments. These are policies. Here in Sonoma County, we have some of the most aggressive reduction dates of CO2 emissions of anywhere in the country. So I will be able to report to you the heavy-handedness and attempts to require this type of new market. What this is really doing, based on false science, are creating new markets of retrofitting and new banking markets as well. Because we had 3 banking institutions come to our city council meeting and define what their interest rates would be for people that wanted to borrow the money necessary to complete their home retrofitting. Now, these banking firms said, of course, these loans are voluntary. Well, yes, they are. But what is not voluntary is your requirement to retrofit. So dependent upon what the first write-up against your property is, many people may not be of the means to pay for that retrofitting. So those loans are going to be conveniently available for you to borrow money. This money will be attached to your property tax bill. So it runs continuously on the property if you sell it. And if you don't pay it, unlike a second mortgage or a third mortgage, it's much easier to take the property.
In 2012, the CIA director, he's on record saying, hey, we're going to spy on people through their smart appliances. And now you don't have a choice. Now you have to update your appliances. And now the smart grid technology, the smart meters regulate everything you do, whether you take a shower, whether you turn on a power tool, if you're bootlegging off the grid. And now with these smart water regulators, I mean, it's a fact that, these international government agencies and bankers are clandestinely watching every little bit of activity that you do. Every one of your daily activities in life is monitored, but you're right. So now they've got that covered, and now they want to take over public water municipalities to privatize the water resources for complete corporate profit and control. I mean, this really is a sci-fi, isn't it?
Well, it's even worse than that. It's a massive genocide program around the idea of scarcity, ultimately is restrictive of food. And what I've seen in policies that I've researched, particularly some of the ones that I have on my website, and under the banner of stopthecrime.net, you will see a variety of links. One that I would recommend everyone go to is Global Strategic War Plans. Global Strategic War Plans. We found that out of the Ministry of Defense, out of the United Kingdom. And that plan was put together, essentially a think tank where global governments have come together to look forward to what the future will look like. And the future that is presented in this plan is absolutely diabolical. They talk about the results of limited water resources and therefore the limited amount of food availability, and that this will affect well over 2 billion, almost 3 billion people will suffer from water stress. What they mean is water death, inability to access water and or food. And what they say will be the likely solution for the limited water resources and consequently the poor agricultural practices that the United States and global agricultures have literally demonstrated that are poor water practices. That will lead us into required genetically modified foods to meet the starvation.
Yeah, but isn't it sick that even now it's not bad enough that you've got all this nefarious water regulating and now even virtual water trade, but now you've got them saying, well, water stress affects 3 million people and inadequate water reserves could be an impediment to growth. So really, they're just regulating. They're deciding basically who can have water. And I mean, Nestle's on record for saying we need to privatize water. It's not a human right. What's really stunning, Deborah, you've got Goldman Sachs taking a deep dive into water, pun intended. So it's big profits for bankers controlling the water supply. And think about this, people. You need water just to think about water. I mean, you can't go without it. And it is just so insidious that this cabal has hijacked our water.
Well, they've done so under many processes. They've intentionally poisoned the water. That's why I'm recommending the YouTube Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, because we refer to and give links to the Goldman Sachs Taking a Deep Dive into Water, where you will find at the end of that document the corporations within the United States that are working to help privatize the water in our country. Starbucks and other energy companies and other firms are all part of this cabal. And the list is in the back of that Goldman Sachs Taking a Deep Dive into Water. Again, you can find all of these documents that we discuss in the YouTube, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. There's another document that I would recommend everyone download. You can download it from stopthecrime.net. Go to the Water Wars link. It is the link at the top of the page, and this document is entitled Water Market USA, Global Water Intelligence. And what you will find in this document are a list of the corporate agencies here in the United States that are working with the international bankers and corporations to force our public water municipalities into the hands of privatization of bankers. and it lists the EPA as being a lead agency to create standards to certainly protect endangered species as a way in which to collapse monetarily the fund resources of our public water municipalities. For example, here in Northern California, they have a 10-mile area along a river where they've had to build fish ladders. And this is at a cost of $25 million. And it only is going to last for about 25 years. All of the redwood poles and pylons that they're sinking only have a life expectancy of 25 years. What we're watching is a Hollywood backset production of necessary waste in order to impoverish the water agencies so that they have to then and will welcome private-public partnerships. Private-public partnerships are nothing more than the globalist way in which they're getting into our private systems. They also talk about in this document the Department of Interior, and we discovered on the website of the Department of Interior there's a horrifying map of the western United States. It's called a conflict map, and it's color-coded, and it shows areas of anticipated conflict of people not wanting to give up their lands because of water wars. Again, you can see all of these documents in Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. Again, I recommend you download the document Water Market, Global Water Intelligence. It was found on the UK website. This was not intended for us to find this. Now we have. You need to take a look at this. It talks about the enormous marketing opportunity and increased profits by water treatment plants. In other words, what that means is what we're hearing now, this Clean Water Act. The groundwater table throughout the United States for many, many decades has been intentionally poisoned by toxic injection wells of manufacturing waste, literally vaccinating our country with poisons. And that is, of course, coming up in the secondary water cycle, coming up in our streams and creeks and in our groundwater aquifers, keeping in mind that primary water is below all of that, and it pushes its way up. So, yes, it can get mixed in with the heavily polluted water. But there are ways to encase those wells for the primary water so that it is not polluted by this poisonous intention to literally not only use chemicals and biologicals as a genocide program by polluting the water table, but to also then tell us, because there's too many people using too much stuff and we haven't managed to lower our CO2 emissions and we've created all this pollution, that now we have to pay billions and billions of dollars to treat this toxic water. In fact, we're now finding, Sheila, that they are building water treatment plants, and we're literally calling it sewer to tap, because that is what they're doing. And they're talking about desalinization, and people are all excited about these new forms of treating water that is already polluted. So when you look at this particular water document, you find in this document very concerning things that they tell us. They talk about obstacles to the United States water market as being our public water municipalities are already doing a good job operating their facilities. That's an obstacle to these globalists that want to privatize the water. Our agencies are already doing a good job. And then they say another problem is the American dream of controlling our own destiny is a powerful driver in the United States. That's an obstacle. And then they talk about how they will remove some of these obstacles and how optimistic they are at accomplishing that. They are already accomplishing removing these obstacles by marketing the idea that there are more efficient ways to operate water facilities. And they're in a heavy, heavy customer relations campaign. They also say another obstacle that will move them more rapidly into the privatization of the U.S. water market is the credit crunch that we have been in, and they see increased opportunities for the private sector as a result of the credit crunch that they have created. They also talk about how they will put one toe in to our government or our local municipalities by saying that we could lease water systems from these private-public partnerships. And they're saying that that would make the idea of private-public partnerships and leasing more palatable to the community. This report is diabolical. The things that they talk about in the government, corporate agencies that are in the United States that are working inside the United States to literally reduce our water supply is absolutely diabolical. Another thing that I recently attended was a very important scientific program called the American Association for the Advancement of Science. It was a 4-day program held in San Jose, California. It's touted as a very prestigious scientific gathering of scientists and academia from all over the world. Millions and millions of dollars went into coordinating this 4-day meetup. They had a large exhibit hall where they showed many aspects of future scientific technologies. They also featured in their exhibit hall a large area where scientists could apply for grants. Now, I need to talk about grants a bit here because everyone needs to understand we are being pummeled into deeper debt without realizing that grants are a large aspect of that now. Most of the corporate government agencies, we're talking about the EPA, we're talking about Fish and Wildlife, we're talking about the U.S. Forestry, your school boards, your city councils. Anywhere you go, you're going to hear them talking about filling out forms and wanting grants. And they have to fill out grant request forms and solicit for grant money. When I go and ask, where does this grant money come from, usually they say, well, it's free. It comes from the federal government. It's free. It's not free. It's adding to our national debt, and every agency is requesting grants. You can check this out for yourself. This should be absolutely a requirement for everyone to understand how we are being pummeled into further debt without realizing the mechanism of grants. And, of course, we know that we have phony currency, so it's being printed out, and we are being enslaved beyond our ability to ever extricate ourselves from this enslavement by lack of knowledge, lack of education. That's another point that I'll make right now. We have a link on stopthecrime.net under the banner. It's entitled Kids for Profit and Eugenics in the School. I'll cover that shortly. Just a small amount because I have another very important topic that I've got to cover, Sheila, and I'm trying to be mindful of the time. But what we've discovered is the Common Core curriculum that has been presented in all of the schools across the country that also was put forth by grants that the school boards accepted. And now the Common Core curriculum is being well advanced into all levels of school. It is dumbing down classes. It is also teaching global warming as a scientific fact in our science classes for our children, teaching our children the fear of scarcity. So our children are becoming very angry at the older generations for using up all of the resources. And this is causing certainly quite a bit of chaos within homes, insecurity with the younger population, to the extent that in many of the documents they talk about how the younger population is going to become very violent towards the older population for what the older population has done to them. This is what is being created now, Sheila, with the ways in which they're managing and manipulating the chaos. And it is unthinkable what is occurring. But beyond the fact of Common Core is the fact that now they're trying to get 3- and 4-year-old children in school. It's now becoming a requirement. They're calling it preparation for kindergarten. And, of course, what is really happening is they're bringing in sex education programs into the lower grades. This is MK Ultra Mind Control. On that link on stopthecrime.net, again, Kids for Profit and Eugenics in the Schools, I have a 13-page mind control MK Ultra document. I would recommend everybody read it. Understand what is happening to our children. Our children are being fed into a system that will destroy them. And parents need to understand the depths of what is occurring, and many people now are starting to homeschool. There are homeschooling networks setting up throughout the country. It does not mean that they're dragging the indoctrination of government education home to homeschool them with. They're not doing anything concerning the current indoctrination programs, books, and materials for homeschooling. Many people are concerned, well, what are my children going to do when they want to go to college if they don't have the programs that they've studied that will allow them to pass the required tests? Well, again, everyone will need to also consider what colleges have become. Sadly, they have become the areas of massive advances in technologies that are adding to the acceleration of the transhumanism agenda, wherein, of course, many of you have heard and understand that we are being transformed on a molecular level, a genetics level. In fact, at one of the recent meetings I attended, and of course, you don't have to be out on a ship, a fleet of vessels in international waters to only conduct genetic experimental programs in labs, but that is also one of the methods that is done. I found out, Sheila, that there are doctors that literally have vessels in international water so that they're not held to any government laws or any laws at all, and they're performing and have been doing things. But I know that that's happening in the laboratories in the universities. The universities are able to take grant funding, which they do, and they have far more flexibility than government agencies. They don't have the constraints in the universities. And the universities have become very predatory against the population. What do I mean by that? Well, when you look at Senate Report 93549, Senate Report 93549, you quickly learn that we are the enemy. And that should be pretty understood at this point in the sense that we're all being dumped by poisonous chemtrails on a daily basis, poisons added to our food and water supply, poisons in the fabric of our clothes. We have to read labels on food in order to try to avoid the various types of neurotoxins from aspartame, etc., that are being intentionally added into the food supply. This is a genocide program. It's been going on for many years. It's certainly amped up significantly, and I'm going to cover that now. We discovered on the Federal Register, again, we are USA Inc. We are a corporation. All the agencies are incorporated. What does that mean? It means that they are a piece of paper. And I've often been confused myself before I understood what that meant, and I'll try to explain it. A corporation is a piece of paper. In other words, if you call your city that is incorporated and say you would like to talk to the corporation, you're going to get a person. You're never going to talk to the corporation because it is not human. It is not a person. So we have a duo system. We have the illusion of representation that many people still believe that we have a constitution, we're being represented by governments, we have local cities that represent us. That is not true. They're all incorporated. They all are abiding to the requirements of revenue. That's the sole function, is the requirements of increased revenue. And so what we recently found on the Federal Register is nothing short of diabolical. And this is where I would recommend everyone go from time to time to find out the corporate regulations. These are the executive orders being put out upon all of us. Sheila, we found a national adult immunization plan, a requirement to vaccinate all adults over the age of 18 throughout the United States within a 5-year program.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Well, Deborah, when you talk about the deliberate dumbing down of the kids through Commie Core, kids are also told to pledge allegiance to Mother Earth, these pagan forms of pantheism that are pushed on kids, global warming. And when you talk about the technocratic oligarchs polluting the air, polluting the water, changing the food, the nefarious vaccinations, and even the transhumanism, it's interesting because the Iron Mountain report back in 1966, it warned us of all these various methods to absolutely implement serfdom by stealth, and it's quite stunning.
It is. In fact, before the Iron Mountain report, it was completed in 1966 after he was assassinated. And I want to just point everybody to stopthecrime.net. Go to the Hot Radio Show topics. You will be able to download the National Adult Immunization Plan. It is diabolical. Minimally, all adults over the age of 18 will be required to have 13 vaccinations and catch-up vaccinations on any vaccinations that they never got as a child. And this is now being laid out in all of our towns because people wonder, well, how are they going to force vaccinate? Well, the Affordable Health Care Plan provided the requirement for vaccinations. So it was far more invasive than most people even recognized. And how it's coming into our cities and how they will accomplish that is they have these Healthy County 2020 plans. Sonoma County is a Healthy Sonoma County 2020. And it is requiring that everyone be insured with health insurance. And we have discovered that California Blue Shield has given the county a grant of $120,000 to set up a database to track and monitor all people in the county that are covered by health care. If you're covered by health care, you are required to get vaccinated. That is the new definition of care and health. Because when you look at this draft report, the National Adult Immunization Plan, you read this: vaccination is considered one of the most important public health achievements of the 20th century and continues to offer great promise in the 21st century. Vaccines save lives, improve the quality of life by preventing serious infectious diseases and their consequences. However, the benefits of vaccinations are not realized equally across the U.S. population. Adult vaccination rates remain low to the United States, and significant racial and ethnic disparities also exist. So they're talking about how there will be clinics based in all of our cities and counties, and that they will track and monitor whether you are up to date with your vaccinations. Certainly we've been hearing that there is the likelihood that before you can fly on a plane, they will require proof of updated vaccines, particularly with the measles, since that was literally a false flag to create this plan and to push this through and to create fear. Remembering everything is fear-based, everything is literally being set up on us. We are in a massive biological warfare, and the American people and the global human family are all targets. And we can certainly see by the lack of a government that does not represent us that we have been tricked and fooled into the most dangerous parasitical reality that any of us could possibly imagine. And sadly, because of our inability to have learned the truth about how government really works and that we are really a corporation, we have been enslaved by ignorance. We've also been enslaved now by the increased levels of poisons and toxins that have literally not enabled us to think critically. And this has been a reality that we all face. And so I think it's most important now for people to understand the things they can do. You can certainly go to stopthecrime.net to our solutions page. We have some ideas there. Certainly many things that we can do. We can also, and I would recommend that you read the book by Eustace Mullins, Mullins, called Murder by Injection. And there's an extremely, and I underscore it, extremely important YouTube that I would recommend everybody watch. It is a YouTube by Dr. Andrew Moulden, Mouldin, Dr. Andrew Moulden. Because before they killed him in his late 40s, he was advocating another concept for the consequences of vaccinations. And literally, he was able to show and prove that children at various stages of vaccines were having strokes, and that could be shown on our faces, whether we have a symmetrical lineup of our eyes, maybe one mouth might droop. He went through different ethnicities. He went through global assessments of populations after, before, and during vaccinations. This man was killed because he was exposing this years before and tying it together. And I cannot recommend more highly that people take a look at Dr. Andrew Moulden YouTube video.
You just said one thing that was so incredibly pertinent, and it's that we are in one massive biological war, spy, lie, and fry, and, everything from mind control to electronic to harassment to Stasi-level surveillance. I mean, we are absolutely seeing a soft kill, calling it Mach speed, and it is hard to know where to attack this thing. But, Deborah, I know you got to run, and thank you so much for coming on the program. We've got the website link there at our website. Thanks for coming on, and come back and see us soon, Deborah.
Thank you so much, Sheila.
That was Deborah Tavares. Her information is linked there at weekendvigilante.com. Folks, thank you very much for tuning into the program today. Again, a big shout out to the WWCR listeners. And as I leave you today, I'm going to leave you with some of my favorite excerpts from a shocking interview Deborah did on the NASA war document. Take a listen. It is quite something, quite frightening indeed. And on that note, we'll see you tomorrow with Steve Quayle. Good night and God bless.
One of the things that we want to talk about is the significance of this NASA war document that was found on the NASA website, and the need to urgently get this out in front of as many people as possible because of the content of this document. It was on the NASA website, and it was a document that actually is a PowerPoint presentation by Dennis Bushnell, the chief NASA scientist at the Langley Center. And it was presented in 2001, July of 2001, just a few months before 9/11. And what brought my attention to it and immediately rang some uncomfortable realizations was when we first came across it. It says on the website, Future Strategic Issues, Future Warfare circa 2025. And as I decided to just flip through it quickly to see what it was about, I was a little stunned on page 4. It said, the presentation is based in all cases upon existing data, trends, analysis technologies, no pixie dust. And the entire premise of the document, or the PowerPoint, is about robots, cyborgs, and humans. So I immediately saw a conflict between future and now. And I thought, what are they covering up? Because that was a definite cover-up. And then I started to continue looking through the document with shock. And that's why we're talking right now, because I think most people would be shocked to find on page 93.
So who wrote this NASA document, and was this intentional? Did they want the public to see this, do you think? Or?
Well, again, the Illuminati, the most wealthy, rich men on the face of the planet, always telegraph everything that they're going to do. So the fact that it was on the NASA website, it was certainly available to the public, but did they see it? Obviously not. Because had they looked at this document, you would know about it right now. And we don't. And that's the purpose of this discussion, is for people to know about this document. Again, the conflict between the future and the fact that they said it was a current reality in 2001 of July when this was actually presented. And what it said, which was quite shocking, on page 93, it said, capture, torture Americans in living color on prime time. And that is an unbelievable statement. Then it's followed up by saying terror attacks within the continental United States using binary biologicals take down critical infrastructure. They are going to use an EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse. They're going to use radiation frequencies against our brains, etc., and conduct serious psy-war and collateral damage and exploitation. On this same page 93, they say exploit CNN syndrome. Now, CNN, of course, is the network, the news media network, propaganda machine, and was set up by the CIA. You can watch the movie called Psy-War on stopthecrime.net for all the background information on CNN. On page 66, they say increasingly critical are human limitations and human downsides. Humans are too large, humans are too heavy, too tender, humans are too slow, both physically and mentally, and we require huge logistical trains, meaning we cost way too much money to maintain, and humans have rapidly decreasing to negative value. Can you even believe this? I mean, you're hearing this, and it's got to be rather shocking coming off of a NASA website, particularly when some of the agencies that are involved are the U.S. Air Force, DARPA, the CIA, the FBI, Southern Command, Atlantic Command, Australian Department of Defense, and other agencies with technologies beyond most people's comprehension. Everyone is buying guns and ammunition, and they don't realize that the beam weapons, for example, on page 45, beam weapons increasingly prevalent. This is how they're going to attack. They talk also about, on page 9, this is very interesting and horrifying. Humans have taken over and vastly shortened evolution. They're going to direct evolution. They believe, the bankers, the global elites, believe that they have accomplished immortality. And they're doing that, again, keeping in mind that this entire document is about robots, cyborgs, and humans. They've already mapped our brains, and they also talk about microdust as a weapon. They say that this micron-sized mechanized dust, which is distributed as an aerosol and inhaled into the lungs, the dust mechanically bores into the lung tissue and executes various pathological missions. They say it's a completely new type of warfare, and it is legal. This is what they're going to do to all the humans on the face of this planet.